And now it's time for Leadership of the Leaf with Dice and Austin. Let's jump in with a cut and a light.
And welcome back to another episode of Leadership of the Leaf. My name's Austin.
And I am Dice.
And we will be your hosts for this lovely evening of talking about cigars and leadership. But first, before we get into anything, what are you smoking on, Dice?
I'm smoking on the Cerberus Guardian of the Farm by Aganorsa Leaf. Aganorsa, however you want to say it.
Okay.
The Hounds of Hell, they guard gates of hell.
Yep.
So far, so good. The color on it is a very dark chocolate. Just lit it, so mild pepper.
Mild pepper. All right. I'm smoking one that you previously smoked. I'm smoking that Acid 20-year anniversary edition. I'm tasting that licorice that you talked about in that previous episode when you smoked it last.
All right, it's the Connecticut shade, yeah?
Yes. It's okay. We'll see. I just, like I said, just lit it, so we'll see how this cigar goes.
That's perfect. What's even more important, not more important, but what's equally important is what are you pairing it with?
I'm actually pairing it with a whiskey and Coke Crown Royal whiskey, of course. I'd say, of course, like I drink it all the time. I don't. I'm gonna take a wild stab here and guess that you're drinking Hennessy.
Yes. The Hennessy VSOP, sir.
The standard. All right. Well, now that we've gotten all of our introductions and the wonderful people who listen to us talk about ourselves, know what we're smoking and drinking, let's get into the topics.
Kind of will enjoy our cigar topic for this one because our cigar topic is cigar slang or cigar. There's some terms in there people quite don't understand sometimes.
Jargon.
There's also some slang in there. Jargon. Jargon is the professional way to say slang. You educated, sir. How about that leadership portion?
That leadership. That one is important, and I take this one kind of seriously. But it's training how to train your replacement, and also why it's so important to train your replacement. And we're not talking like, hey, you put in 2 weeks notice and they hired a new person and you're training that person right before you leave. We're talking like long term. I'm going to train the guy that's going to become the next me and my company, because we're all badasses, right? So
there you go.
So we gotta make sure they're trained correctly and are able to handle themselves. But we'll get there eventually.
All right. So I must put a precursor on the cigar slang, because some of the terms that are heard are different in different areas. Just like you say Coke for some parts of the world, and then some
soda.
Soda pop, call it pop. So some of the terms might be a little different where you're at. Some of the terms might not even be used in your location. So let's just roll with the punches on this one. All right.
All right. Let's jump in. So the first thing is aging. Cigars are like a fine wine. They get better and mellow out with age, but aging is just the process of allowing that tobacco to rest under your controlled environment. And usually cigar makers will age tobacco in the whole leaf form in bales before they start rolling them, and then they'll rest some of them. Sometimes they'll rest them in as finished cigars before they ship them out and everything else. You can age tobacco for years, months, years.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard this, but the scent of a lit cigar is called a bouquet.
Yeah, I think that's one of those, like I can't see me going to a cigar lounge and be like, oh man, that cigar you just lit up, that bouquet, superb, homie. I'll probably get a sideways look.
Yeah.
The vape shop is next door.
Yeah, right. I don't think I've ever heard this one. I don't think my wife will tell me that it's the odor. She not even a scent. It's an odor of my cigars. I'm like, that's like least polite way to say a smell.
Yeah. Sometimes I light up and my wife be like, I like the smell of that one. Oh
yeah.
Well, you smell the bouquet, woman.
But yeah, that aroma comes from the lit ends. And of course, as we all know, after you smoke anything, whether you burn anything, right? These are burning leaves. You're going to have ash. Ash is what's left over after combustion. It's usually just flaky dust.
Magnesium?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, the ash is the funny part of me smoking. If my daughter's around, she always watches, make sure it falls directly in my lap or on my shirt, so she can get a chuckle. Yeah. Thanks, kid.
Well, I mean, we had it. Where were we? Were we in Monte Cristo? I had this big old long ash, and I was like, "Man, I'm gonna save this thing." And I like set my hand down on my seat just a little too roughly, and the entire like ash just went on the floor. I felt like an asshole. I was an ash hole. So yeah, actually, the best way to rid your cigar of unwanted ash, you don't want to tap it off because you could cause cracks further up in the cigar, in the wrapper. But if you just take your cigar and you gently kind of roll it against the side of an ashtray, your ash will fall off and make it nice and neat, and there's no tapping required. It's classy, and there's no chance of a split cigar.
That is 100% true. One of these next ones, a common used word, numerous times. We smoked one during St. Patrick's. It's a barber pole.
Barber pole.
Now, to a non-cigar smoker, a barber pole is something outside of a barber shop, but to a brother of the leaf,
or sister of the leaf,
or sister of the leaf, referring to the wrapper, two types of wrappers on a cigar in a candy cane kind of fashion.
Yeah, what's funny is the barber poles. You hardly see those outside of barber shops anymore. It's a very old school type thing, which is kind of funny. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but I just think it's kind of funny because my kid, who's 4, we were watching a movie that had a payphone in the movie, and he wanted to know whose phone that was. And I said, it's a public phone. And he goes, but how do they take it with them? And I'm like, they don't. They just use the phone and then they leave and they have to pay to use the phone. And he just could not grasp the concept. And it was just hilarious to me.
Innocence is so cute.
Yeah, I was like, oh, young child. So the next one is going to be Barrel. These are just cheap cigars, and they're shipped in barrels during the 1800s. These are usually quantities of about 2,500 cigars. So if you see it's a barrel cigar, usually it's a lower type quality cigar that they're referring to.
Yeah, I've actually heard that used one. And,
really?
Yeah, it was that Tobacco Leaf. Someone was like, everybody was talking about what they were smoking in.
Yeah, it's funny. A buddy of mine, he asked if I smoke. He's like, you smoke cigars pretty regularly, right? I chuckled and I was like, yeah, I guess you could say that. And he was like, yeah, they I got this package in the mail, and they sent me 4 cigars, good sized cigars. I was like, really? Like 5x50 or 6x54? What'd they send you? Toro, Gordo, what'd they send you? He's like, I don't know. They're just yay long. And I was like, okay, got it. And then he was like, yeah, it was really funny because they sent me this thing of wood, and I don't know what I'm supposed to use this thin strip of wood for. And I was like, got it. So they sent him some barrel cigars and a cedar spill to light his cigars, and it just made me laugh. And I was like, if you want, he was like, oh yeah, I like the flavored cigars. I just found Fat Bottom Betty's. And I was like, yep. I was like, you found the sweet bitches. And he's like, the what? And I was like, go try Mary Jane and what's the other one? Crazy Alice.
Crazy Alice is my jam.
Yeah, I was like, those are all sweet bitches, and they're really good. But I digress. All right, next term.
I have not heard this one before. That's why I kept it on here.
So the term is Belvedere. Belvedere cigars usually are shorter and thinner than many other cigar types. My assumption with this would almost be interchangeable with a cigarillo.
I can see that. It's worth looking into. I mean, Belvedere just is talking about a different size of a cigar that's not commonly used in the States. So that's why I left it on there, so other people can kind of, get an idea if they actually ever hear it. They can kind of be like, oh, Belvedere, they're talking about the size of a cigar, not the actual vodka or something, when it's referring to cigars.
Weird. It may be just a Cuban thing.
Could be. Could also be a European thing too.
Yeah, very much so.
This next word term is actually slang, or it could be its actual term. I'm not sure, but you actually point this one out to me because I was getting frustrated with one of my my butane lighters.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's actually bleeding. Normally, you have a poker or something, and you poke the bottom of your butane lighter to purge all that air out, so you can have room for actual butane fuel.
To clarify, if you go to your fill valve on the bottom of your hard flame lighter, like a jet flame lighter, and you gently poke the bottom of the fill valve to release the poppet, what that does, if you turn it upside down, that releases all the air. So if you ever think of like a pump or anything else, right? You have air. If the air gets up into your burners and it keeps making air bubbles and your flame keeps going out and you have to constantly relight it, sometimes if you bleed that air out, the butane flows smoother to your lighter, and it keeps working. Also, it is also good, very, very, very good practice to do that before you refill any of your butane-filled lighters, and afterwards. Actually, I do it before and after.
That's good to know.
Just in case by chance there's some extra air in there. Usually afterwards it's like half a second, and I'm getting like butane sprayed all over me. So the next term is blind taste. Basically, if somebody hands you a cigar, you have no band on there to tell you what it is. It's like a blind date. You have no idea what you're walking into. They'll give you just a cigar, and you have no idea what the brand is or its flavor profile could be, other than your knowledge of what the wrapper looks like.
Right. This is great for someone that's trying to review a cigar. You know, you don't want to give someone a preconceived idea of what the cigar is supposed to be like. The next one is blue mold. It's an airborne fungus that can affect and ruin an entire tobacco field, and mold is also something that can affect cigars in your humidor if it's not properly taken care of.
This is usually just a disease that the plants get before they're even made, but like Dice said, you can get mold in your humidor if you are keeping it too hot and too moist. That's where mold likes to grow, in hot, moist environments. And if you're not keeping stuff fresh. The next one is kind of something we've used before, the complexity of a cigar. So when we talk about the complexity of a cigar, we're talking about the different flavor profiles, the flavor notes that overlap when you get something, right? So if you eat chicken that's not seasoned, you just get chicken. If you eat chicken with salt and pepper, you get a little bit more complex chicken with salt and pepper. And then you can go further and add on thyme and oregano and, some cayenne pepper and all this other cool stuff to make it a very complex, great tasting chicken breast that you might get at a restaurant or something.
So in your first third of your cigar right now, what's your complexity? Because I can go ahead and tell you mine is still that mild pepper, which isn't bad because I don't like strong pepper. It's mild. But I can taste vanilla in the background, which I am fucking loving.
This one is still very much a licorice, but not like a black licorice. I don't know, it's weird, but it tastes like maybe like licorice with like some vanilla in it.
Oh, all right. It reminds me when I had it, the licorice that kind of get, you're chewing and you're stuck in the roof of your mouth. So it kind of doesn't really have flavor, but it's licorice because you can still taste the licorice. That's what I got.
Yeah, I could see that. This has a little bit something else kind of mixed in with that licorice flavor. I want to say vanilla. I'll figure it out here in a little bit, but it's not bad for sure. Don't think this is a humidor worthy cigar. Like, I'm not gonna go out and buy it.
I'm glad you said humidor, because the next word is something is definitely hits home for you. Is a coolador.
I almost built one of these.
It sounds like it's a cooler that you made into a humidor.
Yeah, so I have one. It's actually from a wine cooler that was made. I purchased it from a company who does it, and it's nice because my cigars. I live in Florida. It gets hot, and I don't want to run my AC all the time to keep my house cool because it would be my electricity bill would be astronomical. So I bought this nice cooler door to help keep my cigars at a better temperature to avoid cigar beetles and mold.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like you thought that one out, sir.
I did. It was a great purchase, and I love it. All right, so the next one is dipping. Now, cigar purists will scoff at this term.
Yes.
Because dipping is basically you take to the end of your cigar that you're puffing on, the head of your cigar, and you dip it in your drink, and then you put it in your mouth, and that way it helps get your bourbon mixed with that smoke flavor that you're already puffing on. However, like I said, tobacco purists or cigar purists will scoff at that because the tobacco should stand up on its own. You don't fuck with the tobacco.
I agree, but there is a famous smoker that used to do this, and I could be wrong, but I think he is coined to one of the first ones to actually do this. And surprise, surprise to me, Winston Churchill.
Yep. Next one is dog rocket. No, it is not a male dog's reproductive organ. Or it's not your nose blowing technique of being a snot rocket. A dog rocket is a bad cigar.
Commonly referred to as what comes out the hindquarters of a dog. What are you smoking on, a dog rocket? It's a barrel. I'm sorry. That's all I could afford.
I thought about buying those. It's a boy cigars when I was getting ready to have my son, but I was so afraid that they're just shit because they're cheap. I was like, no, I'm not even gonna do it.
Next one is face. Face is the side of the cigar you see when it is in a cigar box. It's the one that's facing up towards you. Mostly it's women that places these in a box because women can see color a little better than men. They can tell the different shades. A better lineup of having your cigars look perfect when they're in a box.
Mm-hmm. So the next one is fermentation. If you don't know what fermentation is, or if you didn't know that cigars undergo fermentation, that's fair. Fermentation is basically where they take the tobacco and they have it in large bulks or pilons of tobacco, and these things can weigh like 4,000 pounds. And basically what it does is it combines the heat because it's in the South Americas where it's already hot. But then you stack a bunch of leaves on top of each other. It gets ridiculously hotter. And so these temperatures will reach up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and they'll release ammonia and other impurities from the tobacco, and they ferment the tobacco and make it even better.
Which allows for the next one, which is a finish. Finish is the final tasting notes you get from a cigar. And if something didn't go through the fermentation properly or not long enough, sometimes you can get a little bit of the ammonia or formaldehyde kind of finish to your cigars. So your finish is the tasting notes that they want the cigar to have.
Yeah, I kind of think of the finish as like the aftertaste of a cigar.
What remains on your palate.
Yeah, so, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the cigar that you're smoking. But the next term kind of can help diagnose this, and that is a flavor bomb. So it's just simply, that means a cigar that's loaded with big tobacco flavors. Hey, I'm getting cedar and, earth, whatever. The cedrus. I want to say that's by Undercrown?
Cedrus? I thought that was Southern Draw.
It is Southern Draw. You're right. It is Southern Draw. Cedrus is a huge flavor bomb of cedar. It is just knocking in your teeth with cedar. But it's good smoke.
We've used this one before, using it in a joking manner. Glass top cohibas. Glass top cohibas is commonly a phrase used to talk about fake Cubans or counterfeit Cubans.
Yeah, actually, a buddy of mine, the same buddy that was talking to me today, he asked me if I'd ever smoked a Cuban. And I said, well, yes, I've smoked Cuban cigars. And he goes, do you think they're overhyped? And I was like, my personal opinion is that they are. I said, but everybody to each their own. I said, why? And he goes, well, my dad's got some cohibas from down in Mexico, and we smoked them. And I said, oh, did they have a profile of a lady's head? And he's like, yeah. And I said, oh, so is that holographic band? And he was like, the band wasn't holographic. I said, oh, then he got fake cohibas. And he was like, well, how do you know? I said, because real cohibas, I said, their band is down to the details. They're constantly counterfeited. So he got some glass top cohibas.
Half wheel is commonly referred to as bundles, or is normally like a stack or almost in a wheel shape, 50 cigars. Usually they're budget. They're not barrel, but they're normally like budget sticks. Like factory smokes sometimes come in a bundle.
Yeah. So the next one is going to be Herf, which is kind of funny to me because I'm like, really, we can't come up with a better name than Herf.
Yeah, I don't care too much for Herf.
Herf is just a gathering of cigar lovers who meet and smoke together. Herfs are usually backyard barbecues, or you can go to a cigar lounge or a convention or something. That'd be considered a Herf.
Some people don't like having the cigars touch their lips, so they would get a cigar holder or a holder. And what that is just kind of like a Black and Mild. You know how you can get the wood tip or the plastic tips?
Yep.
It stabs into the cap of the cigar, so where you don't have to cut it or anything, and it allows you to draw through the actual tip that you put on there.
every time I think of a holder, I think of those old, what was it, back in the 30s, 40s, maybe in the 20s, where the ladies used to have their cigar holders, and they're like long, thin, black.
Oh, yeah.
Like the cigarette holders or whatever. And they're like the length of their forearm smoking on a cigarette. I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? But I digress.
I like the feel of the tobacco.
I like to get the taste of the tobacco wrapper on my lips because I feel like that's part of the experience.
Yeah.
But homogenized tobacco leaf is our next term, Dice.
Homogenized. That's commonly referred to as machine-made like cigars. What it is the scraps and bits of cigars that you cut, short filler, long filler, whatever. Normally the rejects that's around. They send it to a factory and they chop it up, and it's made into this like paper substance. And then it is machine made into a mass-produced cigar.
Swisher Sweets.
Sadly, I hate to admit it, but George Burns, his cigars, they were actually homogenized cigars.
Yeah. Hybrids. So hybrids is a variety of hybrid tobaccos have been developed through genetics. But basically, it's two or more different plant types coming together to create a different type of tobacco. They're engineered usually for disease resistance, greater yields, specific flavor profiles. And I'm going to just, I'm going to sit there and be honest. All of the food today has been genetically modified through years of selective breeding by farmers. I'm just putting that out there in case you didn't know it.
Was it ISOM? ISOM, commonly referred to as Island South of Miami, which is better known as
Cuba. This was the big thing back when the embargo was a thing.
Yeah, because you didn't want the Cuba was like a bad word, so you would say
communist. Cuba. Communist.
Yeah.
Embargo. Hey, I got this cigar. Oh yeah, where'd you find it? On an island south of Miami.
There you go. The next one, mixed field, or commonly referred to as a Cuban sandwich. That's normally short filler, long filler. Mm-hmm. This is more of the budget stick area.
Yep.
Where you'll see a cigar and you don't recognize the name or the actual parent company or anything. They just buy the scraps from these companies and they put a cigar together. Yep.
Sometimes, you'll get a Cuban sandwich that's barrel. Not just a barrel cigar, but they can be good. They can be decent cigars if you're on a budget. But all right, so the next is a mouse hole. So this is caused by a pocket or tunnel in the filler tobacco on one side of your cigar, which makes it burn really fast while the other side's hardly burning at all. Sometimes it is called canoe, but
it goes past the canoe just a little bit.
Yeah, but it goes past the canoe, and usually what you'll see is a little black ring up your wrapper, and basically what that is that's there's a hole there, so all the air is getting drawn through there, and it's just superheating your cigar on that one side and kind of letting the smoke out there instead of going to your cut at the head of the cigar.
You ever had a cigar that was just full and just heavy and just like that's a very, very full body smoke?
Yep, the pledge. EP Carrillo's pledge.
They can be referred to as a Nick bomb.
Nicotine bomb.
Yeah, just pretty much just like that is very heavy. Makes you dizzy a little bit, can make you dizzy a little bit, knock you on your tuchus a little bit.
Nosing or retrohale, Dice. I know how much you love retrohaling. So basically what this process is so people will know your sense of taste. It is not all found on your tongue. Actually, your sense of smell has a great deal to do with what you taste. That's why if you smell something nasty in the air, you can almost taste it, and it just tastes terrible. So what they do is if you inhale an amount of smoke, I recommend letting about 80% of it out through your mouth, then closing your mouth and pushing the rest of that smoke down through your nose. And it helps get some of the some of the more subtle flavor notes from your cigar.
And I usually do it wrong. And I choke. That's fine.
Yeah. So the next one's nubbing. Now, I had to, when I first started, I was like, why would anyone do this? It's too hot. I can't do it. But nubbing is when you take your cigar. Now, there's cigar picks out there. Some people use toothpicks. I have a tool. Part of came with a nubber, and basically what it is where if I get down to if I'm really enjoying a smoke and I want to take it down to as far as I can get it to go, where I can't even hold it, basically where I'm smoking on it so much that if I was to keep smoking on it, my lips would be touching the ember. That's nubbing it.
I had a few that I used my cigar poker and I nubbed them. Normally, if I spend a lot of money on a cigar, I want to nub it. Because I want everything. I want all my money.
Yeah, that like I said, or I've done it where I've just been having a great cigar. Whatever that cigar that I chose that day was just wonderful, and I'm like, I'm gonna nub this one.
Yeah, I don't want it to end.
Yeah, exactly. Next one is a pepper bomb. I still think to this day the worst pepper bomb I've ever had was that Aging Room Quattro. And it was a white pepper bomb. So what it is when you're smoking a cigar and it's pleasant and you're good and everything's hunky dory, and then just smacks you in the fucking face with pepper. Whether it's white pepper, red pepper, black pepper, whatever pepper. Smacks you in the face. That is a pepper bomb.
Yes, indeed. Pretty much feels like you just put a tablespoon of pepper just in your mouth. Normally, it's unpleasant. Some people might like it. We both find it unpleasant.
Yes.
You refer to the other one quite often, especially for nubbing, to get an actual pleasant draw out of it. Some people call them a piercer. Some people call it a cigar poker.
Yeah.
By any other name. It's just what you would use to unplug tobacco in your cigar if you're not getting a good draw from it.
Yep, I use my cigar poker a couple times, and usually I could try to kind of tell on a cold draw. And by cold draw, I mean I have not lit up a cigar to where there's fire at the end. Sometimes it helps give me an idea of what flavors I'm supposed to be tasting throughout that cigar. I'm not touching this one. I'm gonna let you touch that one. I don't want to touch it.
Well, it's a controversial one because some people enjoy plume. It's a powdery white substance that's on your cigar. It's from the natural oils of a premium cigar. They say it's harmless and its typical appears on the surface of the wrapper of the leaf, especially when it's reaches its peak or its prime maturity. They indicate that it's for. It's not to be confused with actual mold. Mold has a color to it. Plume is normally white.
There is white mold.
There is white mold, but they say plume is good, mold is bad. But plume also can refer to the actual smoke output of a cigar, like a plume of smoke.
Yeah, plume is supposed to be easily brushed off a cigar versus mold, which is usually in the foot of a cigar. Plume is not usually in the foot of the cigar, but mold will be. You'll find these on puros a lot of times, which a puro is just a pure a cigar that is made from only one region. So
yes.
There's Cuban puros, Ecuadorian puros, Nicaraguan puros.
The cigar I'm smoking now is a Nicaragua puro.
Is it? Oh, nice.
Yeah. The wrapper, the binder, the filler, all Nicaragua.
All from Nicaragua. That's all it means. All right. So the last one we got is the Jargon. Jargon. Short for yard cigar. This is the one that you don't care about. So you smoke it while you're out mowing the lawn. You're smoking it while you're putting up a fence. Whatever, it's not that big of a deal. You're not smoking it for the taste and all that, everything else. You're just smoking it to smoke a cigar.
Yeah, I commonly refer to it as my chore cigar. It's the one I'll smoke when I'm doing chores around the house.
Yep.
Well, those are some of the common, some not so common, some I haven't heard of before. I'm pretty sure any cigar smoker that's been smoking for a lengthy period of time, I'm pretty sure they heard more than half of these at some point in time. But I just wanted to, I thought it was good to touch base with a few of the slang terms we use quite often on the show, and some people could be like, what the hell are they talking about? So that's why I wanted to do that topic.
Yeah. Nope. I would wholeheartedly agree, because there's a lot that you don't want to sound dumb by asking what it is, but you have no idea what the hell they're talking about. So, there's no bad questions. But I'm in my third now. Still getting some licorice. Very heavy licorice. This is not a very complex cigar at all.
No, if I remember correctly, no, it just had a lot of hype behind it because it was their 20th anniversary, but it's their second 20th anniversary. I have a Maduro 20th anniversary out there. So they was just throwing the Connecticut shade out there to join the club. So, mine, I would say is moving. I got a spice. That pepper is more of a spice, and I can get some fruit, like spicy fruit.
Interesting.
So, still good.
Nice. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, And when we come back, we're going to talk about how and why you need to train your replacement.
All right. And we'll be back right after this little break.
Don't forget, we need to follow the podcast so we know when new episodes drop.
All right, that was a good break. We're back, and now we're here to talk about our leadership portion about training your replacement and why. What the hell?
Yeah, some people don't want to train replacements. I've never understood that. Maybe if they just had a bad taste in the mouth for the company, leaving on not so great terms. I don't think that's an excuse.
Well, that's the. I can kind of see a bitter taste if you're training your replacement if you got let go or something like that. But
right.
I don't really want to move it in that direction. I want to move it more in a leadership role direction. Like, you need that person that's going to take your place for when you're ready to move up. Because if you are the owner of how to do a certain widget aspect, then why would they promote you? Why would you move up the ladder if you're the go-to guy for it? So it's nice to have your replacement there for when you're ready to move up.
Mm-hmm. It's important to kind of sit there and think about, like, if I'm going to train this person, one, that shows that I'm ready to be in a leadership role. And then two, it might help somebody, a go-getter that's a little bit down the ladder from you, help them move up because they're showing that they can take on leadership roles and they can take on some of these extra responsibilities. And the company and your boss will see that, and his boss will see that, or her boss, or whoever will all see that, and it kind of just makes everybody look a little bit better.
Well, yeah, it's helpful if you get to decide who's gonna, like, fill your shoes, but sometimes you don't really get that choice. But either way, you still need to incubate that person so that they'll be ready.
And I would challenge leaders today to take a look at your team. Your replacement may be somebody that you actually don't personally get along with. You get along with them okay on a professional level, but on a personal level, you may not get along with them that great. But they may be the best replacement that you have, and they're ready for more. And so I would challenge the leaders to sit there and, hey, I need to train everybody, not just my favorite.
And how would you go about that? You would let them have some input on decisions, maybe not full, but at least something.
So what I like to do is I like to sit there and I think of I'm having a medium kind of difficulty decision, right? And I know what I'm pretty sure what I want to do. I'm kind of mulling it over. I'll bring them in. I'll say, hey, this could have an effect on you. Here's the problem. What would you do to kind of solve this issue? That way they can kind of get that upper level thinking. They can get that bigger picture view going on. And it helps provide you a sounding board to see if your decision is a good one or not. And then that helps you kind of sit there and see their thought process. So if they're saying, if you're, let's say, you're just mulling over whether or not to fire a bad worker, or just demote them, and you sit there and, well, I don't know, they do okay work when they show up, but they're not very good on showing up, and blah blah blah. Hey, what do you think about this? This is your underling. He's under your section. Has something a little bit to do with you. What do you think I should do? And see what they see, and then go, okay, well, did you know X, Y, and Z? And kind of give them a little bit broader of a view, open their eyes up a little bit more. Yeah,
the main thing is actually exactly what you said. You want to sit down with them, or however you want to do it, but you want to kind of see how how they're going to map out their thought process. Like, why did you pick that answer? And then a lot of times they'll try to second guess themselves, and you're like, no. Let's keep moving forward with what your thought process is. Let's keep seeing, why did you think that? Why did you choose blue over red? Well,
right.
What is your real reasoning behind that? And if it mirrors yours, then the thought process is more than likely there. But every now and again, they might pull a rabbit out of the hat, and you're like, all right, okay, I can see that. I can see where you're coming from. and you can actually implement it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then you can kind of point out this is your thought process and this is the direction you should have chose. Should have chose this fork in the road instead of one left.
Right. Yeah, I like to do that with my guys. I deal with 3 different shifts of workers. And so if somebody wants to move personnel from one shift to another, I'm like, okay, why are we moving this person? Well, personality conflicts on the shift, and then, I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. That would on paper look like a good shift. What about their home life? What do you mean? Well, did you know that they had childcare issues? Oh, no, I didn't know that. Well, did you know that this person has, other things that they schedule during the day, and so they have to work nights or something like that? Oh, no, I didn't know this. And you don't have to get too into the weeds with stuff, but you can just sit there and kind of give them like, hey, these are the kind of things that you got to take into consideration. These are the things that you need to learn and take into consideration before you just start blindly doing things.
Not only does it help that person develop, it also kind of reinforces your own job.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you're talking it out with someone, they actually come to realization that, hey, this guy actually knows this stuff, and it reinforces like your position a little more. Like one day you're going to be in my shoes. This is why you got to think this way. This is why you got to look at the scope, the bigger scope of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and sometimes the younger workers, lower level workers, they tend to think small minds, right? Because that's what they deal with on a daily basis. So, and they go, well, I don't understand why you're making me do extra work now when I could just do, less work now and I'll make it up here. And you go, right, but I had to schedule this other shipment to come in during that time. So if you do less work now, you're going to do triple the amount of work when you're thinking about doing the work that fits better for your schedule. Oh, well, I didn't know that. Right. No, I understand. But this is what you kind of got to think about. And this is what, this is why I made the decision that I made. And I've always likened it to when you're teaching somebody and you're going back to the basics, it reinforces your job and your decision-making skills because it helps to make sure that you're taking into consideration the things you're telling them to take into consideration.
Because a lot of times sitting in the high seat, you kind of get your eye off the prize sometimes. So when you're, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if you're teaching your position already, that means you learn your position very well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best way to kind of get an influence on the junior leaders that you're trying to pull up. You can also start them off with like smaller tasks and work your way up. There's many different ways to do it. Your job could be different from someone else's job. It's just you have to fill out the playing field to ensure that you are doing right by not only yourself, but by the next person you're willing to pull up.
And the cool thing is, at least for me, if you're the one guy that knows how to do widget A, and you want to get promoted, not even that. You just want to take vacation time. And your boss goes, well, I can't have you take vacation during this time. You're the only person who knows how to do this process. Okay, well, actually, did you know I've been training Bob over here on this job? Right? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing.
I've been training him on how to do this, and he's actually done the last 2 or 3 under my supervision, and he's ready to do this on himself. So I can take that vacation time, and and you can say, read help, and then your boss is like, oh, okay, oh, I didn't realize you were doing that. Yeah, I thought it'd be a good idea if I wasn't the only one to sit there and take this, into consideration. And you got to be careful with that, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to overtask the person I'm training, and I don't want what they're getting paid to do, right? Because if they basically start being a manager and a leader, but they're getting paid peanuts, they're going to be burnt. They're going to get burnt out very, 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 very quickly. So you got to make sure that you're not just dumping all of your work on them. In
all fairness, you're trying to line this person up for that. So if they actually can see that coming, I think that added responsibility will give them that confidence to, okay, I'm ready for this new role. Let's go ahead and promote me, and let's go ahead and let me take this position so you can move up the chain or take vacation as you need to.
Right, and that makes sense as long as your bosses don't see it as basically free labor. And that's the bigger issue that I see with a lot of companies that are like, they're saying, hey, I need you to stay late today to work on this. And you're like, okay, I'll stay a little bit late today. And then they just go, well, okay, well, I need you actually in the rest of the week. I need you to stay late. And you're like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be an exception, not the rule. Like, my job is from this time to this time, and I'm not getting paid. You're not paying me overtime. Like, well, but don't you, So it's a delicate balance you got to strike.
Want to make sure the person that's being promoted is not the class favorite or the ass kisser or anything like that. You want the one that deserves it. You want the one that is showing that initiative.
Yeah. Don't let Dave the ass kisser, schmooze you over while he's not doing actually any work. Meanwhile, Joe over here is the one with his nose to the grindstone and working away and getting all the projects done, and Dave's just in your office BSing, or whoever, I don't know. Karen's in your office BSing. I don't know.
When it comes to training, I have a method that I go about training, and it can't always be done this way, but this is, in my opinion, is a surefire way to make sure that someone is actually trained on a task to replace you when you're on vacation or something like that. Now, as probably not popular belief, but I say someone needs to be trained a total of 5 times. The first time you show them, the second time you do it with them as you take the lead. The third time you do it together. The fourth time you let them take the lead as you do it together. And then the fifth and final time you let them out on their own. You let them do it themselves. But of course you trust but verify. So you always make sure they did it properly. But it will be a total of 5 times that they did the task under supervision.
I see. To me, I think that's almost a little bit excessive, but it's needed. Because I like to do 3, but I know that that's not always. To me, that helps kind of weed out the people who are just the people that are actually here for the job and in it to win it, and the people who are just like, maybe this is for me type thing. Because I'm like, look, if I could show you, I can do it with you while you take the lead, and then I can basically trust but verify. There's my 3, right? Yeah. And they kick ass at it, then I know that they took good notes. I know that they're smart, and I know that they wanted it more than the other guy or girl.
I can see that. Your way is 100% good. My way is, I'm telling you, you will not have any failure in that process.
Nope, you will not.
But it's not always warranted. Five times of training someone on something is not always a warranted.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it just, you almost got to tailor it to the person, because when you trained me, I didn't need 5 times.
That's true.
I needed like 2. Basically, I needed you to show me how to do it, and then I did it, and you watched me do it, and then the next time I just did it by myself. I was already, you trusted me to go off and do it on my own, and if I had questions, obviously, don't train them and then be unapproachable for questions. Like, why the hell are you talking to me? I just taught you how to do this. Yeah, you showed them twice.
I had a few people like that. Yeah,
or
Jesus
however many
Christ.
times. And it's like, dude, I just started doing this last week, man. Like, you've been doing this for 20 years. Give me a break.
You're right. It's just all about positioning, choosing the right person for the job, not selecting an ass kisser. I mean, you really just need that replacement for you when you need to take time off, or you need to get promoted to a position. Because, man, if you can't move up in the leadership ladder because you're the linchpin of how a project is working, then there's something wrong. Yeah,
no, 100%. There's a disconnect I see a lot of times where, I've been talking to family members or friends, and I'm like, hey, how's everything going? They're like, yeah, it's great. My boss wants to promote me, but I can't get promoted for another 6 to 8 months. And I'm like, what? 6 to 8 months? Why so long? They're like, well, I didn't have anybody to take over for me. And so they just finally got me somebody train, and now I got to train them up, and I hope they're as good as I want them to be, and blah 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 blah. Because then they're gonna expect me to do it, even after I move up. And I'm constantly going, well, why didn't you just choose somebody? You worked with somebody. They're like, yeah, I knew Paula over here. She would be great at this. And I'm like, did you train her? No. Did she want the job? Yeah. Did you talk to your boss about it? No. Well, why don't you just start training her and then tell your boss, look, Paula's already trained. I've been training her for the last 6 months, 3 months. Oh, shit, really? Yup. Oh, well, then I guess let's go ahead and move you, and then you can always be reachable within the company to answer any questions she has. You're absolutely right. Boom.
Problem solved.
Yeah. And then it just impresses your boss that much more, that reinforces the idea that you need to get promoted because you're already solving problems before they even realize there's a problem.
Well, if you have a good boss, they'll go ahead and see of an actual leader, because a leader wants to, the whole team to succeed.
Right.
Not just you, knowledge is power. But if you're the only one that has that knowledge, then your power is just almost useless.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot you can do. Now, I mean, I've read stories about people saying, hey, I'm going to leave and I'm the only one who knows how to do this. I need you guys to get me somebody to train. And, their bosses are, oh, you ain't going to leave. You're not going to leave, blah, blah, blah. No. I am going to leave. I would like a replacement, and maybe you're in just a one deep position. You don't work with anybody else. And so they have to send you somebody. And that's, if that's the case, then that's the case. Then you don't get to choose, but you still got to make sure you train them appropriately.
Sometimes in that situation, especially if it's on like good terms or whatever, you already announce your 2 weeks or however it happens, you can depending on the company, you can sometimes talk to the boss, and you can become a paid consultant of that for like 2 or 3 weeks until the person gets on their feet.
Yeah, I know this happens a lot when a buddy of mine, he worked for Exxon at one point, and he moved refineries. He went from a Houston refinery to one in Baton Rouge. He kept telling his boss, hey, I'm leaving. You guys are transferring me. I'm getting transferred. This has nothing to do with me, but the company is transferring me to a different state. I need to turn over my projects and blah, blah, blah. And they just kind of hummed and hawed and didn't really get him anybody. And he brought this up like 5 months in advance, and they just sat around, didn't do anything. And then as he was moving, the company was there to move him. His boss called him and said, hey, are you going to come in and turn over all your projects to this new guy? And he's like, no, my house is getting packed up. I'm leaving. I'm out. Like, I'm following the moving truck out. I warned you guys about this. And he's like, well, what are we supposed to do? I figure it out, I guess. He's like, I'll email the new guy all my stuff. That's the best I can do.
Happened to a buddy of mine. He worked for SpaceX, and then he was moving to Vegas because him and his wife wanted to move to Vegas. He told the company as he was leaving, like he had finished all his paperwork to leave the company, the whole thing. They were following him out the door, getting him to sign different equipment and stuff off as he was walking to his car to leave the company. 100% happened, and I was like, that is just bad. It was. Or the person that they had to replace him just wasn't as good as he was, and no one really wanted to, talk to this person because, he's Jimmy, the new guy, and he's like the king, and he's leaving. So,
yeah.
Oh,
I've had that happen when I left. I moved from Florida to New Mexico, and people were I was getting all of my appointments to set up with HR to move all my stuff over, and I was moving within the company, but I had to move my HR, I had to move the insurance, from east to west, and blah 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 blah, and all these other things. And people were still coming up to me, hey, could you sign this piece of paperwork off, and can you come help me with it? No, I can't. I am gone. Go to that motherfucker. Well, I don't like dealing with him. He's not as good as you are. Sorry about your luck. I tried to train him. He didn't want to listen to me. So here's my question. What do you do with that situation? You tried to train your replacement and you didn't you didn't choose to move. You didn't choose your replacement, and the replacement's just not as good as you are. But you're leaving anyways. It's inevitable.
You have to let your boss. I'm at level 10. and you're a guy, you had replaced me. I did my damnedest. I did every leadership thing, pulled every trick in the book. This guy's not getting it. He's a level 3. The ball is in your court. I have to leave. I have no option in this process. I did my part the best I could. So it's just really letting the higher know, letting someone above you know what is actually going on. And then they have to hone their leadership skills on how to pull that person up. Because not everybody is going to be grade A material.
Right. Well, so because I asked you that specific question is because I trained my replacement when I left, when I was working for you, and I left, and the guy that I had to replace me was garbage. He was
you telling me
garbage. So I wanted to know, because I came to you and I was like, look, man, this dude sucks. He's absolute garbage. You've seen it for the last 6 months. I've been trying to train him, and he keeps telling me it's not his first rodeo. He knows how to do stuff. And so I just walk away, and, he doesn't want to listen to me. So I'm just out. And what did you do as the higher up that I came to?
I 100% went to my bosses and said, this guy's not going to cut it. He's not material. He doesn't have it. There's no way he can lead that section. There's no way. The answer I got from my boss was, well, we have to afford him the opportunity to fail. Okay. Yes, sir. And yes, opportunity to fail and fail and fail. And he got replaced. The problem that came from that is I end up having pretty much dual hats. I had to do two roles because I can't let the section fail because I need that section.
Right.
But I also point out his flaws, as every time I had to do something, of course, my bosses knew what had happened. They knew the process. But for that certain situation, he had the time, he had the years behind him. He just didn't have the knowledge behind him.
Right. And you knew that I had tried to train him, and I pulled out every trick in the book that I could to get my replacement up to speed. And I just kept going to you. I'm like, this dude sucks.
Yeah, I remember sitting down trying to paint the bigger picture of what are you doing to do to move forward? Why you have this guy working this? Why we have this hole and it's never being filled? What is going on? What are your steps and procedures to take care of this, to remedy this? And he had some pretty good ideas. They just never came to fruition. So, I mean, I couldn't write him up. It wasn't one of those type situations. I just had to grin and bear it until we replaced him. Eventually, he did get moved out of that section.
Yeah. So it's just interesting to me because I always was kind of curious after I left what ended up happening.
Yeah, what ended up happening was I felt that role.
You're welcome.
It's okay. Which was kind of cool because I remember I can't remember who it was, but they came in, they pretty much said, I think I'm ready for it. I think I can do this. And they actually worked out pretty well. It was a slow process. You start off with smaller tasks and then they eventually filled the role.
Right.
They weren't amazing, but they filled the role enough to where I was able to do my job and not concentrate on someone else's.
Right. Yeah. I kind of remember hearing about that after we talked. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you do everything that you can, but if somebody's just not getting it, the best you could do, if you're leaving that situation, whether it's a promotion, whether you're moving jobs within the company, you're moving sites within the company, you're transferring across the country, whatever the case is, you do the best you can and you just communicate. I think the biggest thing is communication. Yeah,
that guy wouldn't communicate. Like if he came to a roadblock, he wouldn't let anyone know he came to a roadblock until it was too late. Well, it's not too late, but it's, the remedy it effectively.
Easily. Yeah, I can see that. That guy sucked. I should not dog on that dude.
Yeah, not everybody is ready for that leadership role. Not everybody is ready to step up to a certain role. Eventually, I will hope someone will get there. But, great leaders are always training their replacements. One way or another, whether it directly or indirectly, a great leader is always going to train their replacements. Even if they have to go down a few ranks in the lower level.
To find their replacement.
Yeah, to find their even if they don't take it right away, you still can give them the knowledge of when they finally make it to where they need to. They will appreciate, like, you know what? I remember when Dice was talking to me. I'm finally at this level. I can take on what he was talking about before.
Well, that happened, I know, with you and me, because I had just started day one in that job, and you kind of took me under your wing and kind of showed me. I think it was after probably 6 months of you kind of just watching me and seeing what I could do. And you finally started training me up and leading me on and kind of getting me spun up in some of the leadership type stuff. And I always appreciated it, because I was like, man, okay, this makes a lot more sense now, that what I'm doing now versus what I was doing previous.
Yeah, it's sometimes it could take a while for the dots to connect, but the dots are there. And they're there for you to connect. So eventually, not necessarily just like you, just anyone, eventually the dots will connect and you're like, see, you're welcome. And then you just move on.
Yeah, and this kind of goes hand in hand as to knowing when to cut somebody loose, when to just say, hey, you're not my replacement, and move on to somebody else. Don't pour your time and energy into somebody who's just clearly a shitbag and just not gonna get it. You gotta train your replacement. Yes, wholeheartedly agree with that. But if you choose your replacement and you realize you chose wrong, that's okay. Use them to whatever you can. Take extra time off, whatever the case is. If they're good at a certain part of the process, great. Go find a different person that will actually allow you to be your replacement.
Well, I remember there was a few I tried to pull up, just to not necessarily become a replacement, but just to have them become a productive member of the team. And not everybody is even going to make it that far. There's at least two or three that you probably know them too, that we just had to let them go, and eventually they got terminated. But it doesn't go without effort, because you don't want to just turn everybody loose automatically. You want to try to give somebody some kind of shot, some kind of training, some kind of knowledge. Yeah,
my guy, actually, I think we talked about this in a recent episode. My guy that I was trying to train up and replace, I think it was during the knowing when to let him loose, he actually ended up getting moved to a completely different section. And he's doing okay in that new section from what I'm told. But now I'm working with a guy trying to train him up, and he supposedly he's higher tenured in there in that section than I am, but he sucks. So I'm trying to give him some training to kind of pull him up.
That's when you give the responsibility a smaller task, or something that doesn't have such a strong, responsible backbone to it. Let him get his learning legs in place.
Yeah. So, well, I think the big thing is to take away is you guys got to train your replacements. Whether it's for you to move up, for you to take vacation, whatever the case is. I'm a higher manager, I'm a leader, I'm a corporate officer or something. I don't know. You got to make sure you train your replacements.
If not, you're going to be doomed to your same position, and you're becoming stagnant.
But yeah, so talking about all these cigar terms and the leadership of how to train and why it's important to train your replacement. I think this is a much needed conversation. But until next time, I'm Austin,
and this is Dice,
and we'll catch you guys on.
Thank you for listening to Leadership of the Leaf. The comments and opinions expressed by the host and guests does not reflect the opinions of those that broadcast this show, nor does it reflect any of our affiliates.